Hello, guys. Welcome to one more lesson. Good evening. Yeah. In today's story, I'm going to read with you a classic from Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice. The objective in today's lesson is to practice pronunciation, interpretation, and of course, try to visualize the story as we read. One of the important things in comprehending texts in English, new vocabulary, and the overall language is trying to visualize as you hear or as you read. So that's what we're going to work here. That's what we're going to practice tonight. Okay? So take your paper, take your pen or your notebook or your laptop. Be ready to take notes. Okay? And if you guys have questions, of course, you can always leave them here in the comment section so I can try to clarify it in the next lesson, okay? So I'm going to start tonight, and tomorrow we're going to finish this story, okay? So tonight we're going to read a few parts. I'm going to make some questions. I'm going to ask you a few questions, make some remarks if possible, and that's it. I'm going to share here. If you need the link for this video, the link is right here in the video description, and I'm gonna allow you guys, I'm gonna put that here in the chat box in case you want to follow that with me. Okay, so let's get moving. I'm gonna share my screen just a second, and here we go. The Merchant of Venice. I'm gonna go to one page view, and here we go. So the Merchant of Venice is a very nice story. It's a classic because it's Shakespeare. And what's so important about Shakespeare? Well, Shakespeare is one of the guys who revived, reshaped, as we can say superficially, the English language as we know. So before, people didn't have this knowledge of the English language or the theater. He's a person who popularized English language, popular English language by theater, so that's one of the important things. The other thing is, just like every culture, most cultures, just like here in Brazil we have important authors like Machado de Assis, Clarice Lispector, and many, many others. They are a part of the Brazilian imaginary, even though nowadays most Brazilians don't read them or don't know. They were important on the construction of what we are today in some point back in time. So Shakespeare is just like that, so it's important to know at least the basic of his stories of what happened, let's say, in his plays. All right, so here we go. The Merchant of Venice. A lot of people know Romeo and Juliet, and this story is available here in this book. So if you read it thoroughly, you're gonna find out there are 4 stories here: Merchant of Venice, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, and Hamlet. No, yes, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, and if I'm not mistaken, A Midnight Summer's Dream. Yeah. So they are all good stories. Oh, and Julius Caesar too. They're all good stories, and they're nice to practice. Here in this book, you have the simplified version, so it's not a huge book. It's really short, so it's something you can do in your daily life. You who are on the intermediate level, on the basic level, you can use these stories to improve your vocabulary and your pronunciation as well. Okay, so let's go. The Merchant of Venice. Antonio and Bassanio. A merchant called Antonio lived in Venice. Everyone in Venice liked Antonio because he was a good man. He had many ships which traded with other countries. At the time of our story, his ships were all at sea. The friend whom Antonio loved the most was called Bassanio. When Bassanio's father died, he left his son a lot of money. But Bassanio soon spent it all. He became poor and very unhappy. One day, Bassanio told Antonio that he was in love with Portia a rich and beautiful lady who lived at Belmont, near Venice. Portia's father left her all his money on his death, so she was very rich. Bassanio was sad because he could never ask Portia to marry him while he himself had no money. He knew that many rich young men were going to see Bel sorry. He knew that many rich young men were going to Belmont to try to marry Portia. So he asked Antonio to lend him 3,000 ducats, the money of Venice at that time. I haven't any money just now, Antonio replied. All my money and goods are at sea. I'm waiting for my ships to return. Find someone who knows me and will lend money to me. Then I'll get the money and lend it to you so that you can go to Belmont and marry Portia. Okay, guys. So in this first moment, we are being introduced, we are being presented to our main characters, yeah? Antonio and Bassanio, right? Antonio is a merchant. He has money. His friend spent his money, and now he's asking his friend Antonio to help him with some money, okay? Now let's see. Let's learn who's Shylock. Bassanio went to a man who lent money. The money lender's name was Shylock. Shylock had a lot of money, but he loved it too much. He used to lend his money to merchants and then make them pay back much more than they had borrowed. Therefore, the merchants of Venice didn't like Shylock. Antonio used to warn other merchants about Shylock. Shylock never liked Antonio. Antonio is kind and will lend his money to anyone, he said. He never makes people pay him back more than they borrowed. He makes things difficult for me. When Bassanio asked Shylock to lend him 3,000 ducats for 3 months, Shylock knew that Antonio would be soon in his power. I shall never forgive Antonio, he said to himself. I shall not be happy till I have caught him. You do not like the way I make my money, Shylock told Antonio when they met. You have called me a dog and treat me like a dog. Now you come to me to ask for money. Does a dog have money? Can a dog lend a person 3,000 ducats? Shall I bow to you and thank you for treating me like a dog? And shall I lend you money? But Antonio was not afraid. If you lend me money, he replied, don't lend it to me as you would lend it to a friend. Lend it to me as you would lend it to an enemy. If I can't pay you back, you can make me suffer for it. I want to be your friend, said Shylock. I shall forget what has happened in the past and lend you the money. Then he pretended to laugh. Let us play a game. If you don't pay back the money at the end of 3 months, he said, you must promise to give me a pound of your flesh, and you must allow me to cut the flesh from your body. Antonio laughed too and agreed to this. He didn't think that Shylock really meant what he said. But Bassanio was afraid. He said, I think Shylock will do what he says. I don't want you to get money from Shylock. Don't be afraid, said Antonio. In 2 months, my ships will return and bring me plenty of money. So Antonio borrowed the money from Shylock and gave it to Bassanio. The 3 boxes. Before he died, Portia's father thought of a way to find a good husband for his daughter. He thought, I'm afraid that many young men will want to marry Portia because she's rich. So I shall leave 3 small boxes. One box made of gold, another made of silver, and a third made of lead. Yeah? The man who wants to marry Portia must choose the right box. Portia and her servant, Nerissa, were talking about all the young men who had come to try to win Portia. A servant came into her room. A prince has come from Africa, he said. Portia showed the prince all the boxes, and the prince carefully read everything that was written on each box. On the gold box were the words, The man who chooses me shall get what many men wish for. On the silver box were the words, the man who chooses me shall get as much as he ought to get. And on the lead box were the words, the man who chooses me must give and must be ready to lose everything he has. My picture is inside the right box, said Portia. Choose. The prince studied the words on all three boxes. He said, all the world wishes for gold. All the world wishes for Portia. So I choose the gold box. The prince took the key from Portia and opened the box. But he was surprised when all he saw inside was the head of a dead man and a piece of paper. On the paper was written, all that shines brightly is not gold. The prince left with a sad heart, and Portia was pleased to see him go. Bassanio visits Portia. Then a French prince came. He was very proud, so he chose the silver box. The man who chooses me shall get as much as he ought to get. The proud prince said, I am a great man, so I ought to get all that I wish for. He opened the box. In it, he found a picture of a fool's head. There was also a piece of paper in the box. It said, there are many fools covered in silver. The prince said, I've been a fool, and he went away. A servant came to Portia and said, a young man from Venice is coming to try to win you. This young man was, of course, Bassanio. There were many servants with Bassanio. There was also a man called Gratiano. Gratiano was both a servant and a friend of Bassanio. Portia had fallen in love with Bassanio. She said, please, wait a day or two before you begin to choose. If you choose the wrong box, I shall see no more of you. I could teach you how to choose the right box, but I have promised not to do that. Bassanio said, no, let me choose now. I can't bear to wait. Bassanio chooses. Bassanio looked at the gold and silver boxes. He thought, those things which seem beautiful from the outside are not always beautiful inside. The lead box does not promise to give me anything. It tells me that I should be ready to give all that I have to the woman whom I love. So I choose this. He opened the lead box, and in it he saw Portia's picture. Then he read the paper which was in the box. If you are pleased with this, turn to your lady and kiss her. Bassanio turned to Portia and said, dear lady, will you be mine? I wish, answered Portia. I wish that I were 1,000 times more beautiful and 10,000 times richer. Then I might be good enough for you. I give you myself and all that's mine. She took a ring off her finger and gave it to him. Take this ring, she said. When you lose it or give it away, that will be the end of our love. When this ring leaves my hand, answered Bassanio, then life will have left me. I shall be dead. As Portia and Bassanio stood talking about their love for each other, Gratiano and Nerissa came up to them. Nerissa said, we wish you joy in your marriage. Gratiano and I are to be married too. Okay, so let me see here. Yeah, let's read one more page and then I'll come back and make some remarks about vocabulary, about expressions. Okay, so a letter from Antonio. Just as the four happy people were arranging to be married, three friends arrived from Venice with a letter from Antonio. Bassanio opened the letter and began to read it. Portia looked at Bassanio's face. She was sure that something very bad had happened. She said, I'm half of you, and I must have half of anything which troubles you. Tell me what it is. Bassanio read the letter. Dear Bassanio, my ships are all lost. Now I have no money, so I cannot pay Shylock. I must give him a pound of my flesh. If I do that, it will certainly be the end of my life. Therefore, please forget about the money that you borrowed from me. All I wish now is to see you before I die. The kind Portia told Bassanio to go at once to his friend, but she wanted Bassanio to marry her before he went. Then he would be able to take her money and pay Shylock. As soon as they were married, Bassanio hurried off to Venice to see his dear friend Antonio. When Bassanio and Gratiano had gone, Portia thought of a way to save Antonio. She decided to go to Venice herself. Portia had a good friend who was a famous judge. She asked him to lend her all his judge's clothes and notes. Then she put on the clothes and pretended to be a judge. Her maid Nerissa was dressed like a judge's manservant. Then Portia and Nerissa set out for Venice. Okay, guys, so for now, let's stop here on page 6, okay? Tomorrow, we're gonna continue here from Antonio in danger. But before, there are a few expressions and a few words I wanted to explain to you. I wanted to point out. Maybe you didn't understand them quite well. So let's go. Yeah, everyone in Venice liked Antonio because he was a good man. He had many ships which traded with other countries. If you don't understand, trade means to make commerce. Let's say, to do business, to trade. So I have goods, and you give me your money in exchange for these goods, or I exchange goods with you. Yes, I have something and you have something I want, I have something you want, and then we exchange it. All right. Here, the friend whom Bassanio loved the most was called Antonio loved the most was Bassanio. Spin it all because, okay. Let me see here. I haven't any money, my goods. Oh, here. All my money and goods are at sea. Money and goods. Goods here means products, his merchandise. Okay, so the products he's selling are his goods. Just like here in Portuguese, we use a very similar word to talk about the products, the objects, his merchandise. Okay, very nice. And here I have another word which is very important, which is the word land. Land is different from borrow. Okay, really important to point this out. So I lend money. So I have the money and I temporarily give this money to you. So I expect you to pay me back by the end of a period. So I'm lending. You who are taking this money, you are borrowing this money. Okay, so one thing is to lend the money, another thing is to borrow the money. Okay, always pay attention to that. Don't make this confusion. Sometimes people confuse that a lot. Okay, so here, here, look. He used to lend his money, Shylock. Okay, he used to lend, in other words, to temporarily give his money to merchants. Yeah, and then make them, the merchants, pay back much more than what they had borrowed. So the merchants, the other merchants, they borrowed. In other words, they take this money temporarily from Shylock. All right? So important. Make things difficult. I have cut him. And that's it, guys. Let me see. There is another expression I saw here, which is really, really important. Pretend. That's a false friend, pretend. Okay? Pretend seems a lot to a word we have in Portuguese, which is pretender. Yeah? But here, pretend is not pretender. To pretend means to fake, like, ha ha ha. So then he pretended to laugh. In other words, he is faking a laugh. It's a false laugh. Understand? So he's serious. Inside, he's vengeful. He wants to take revenge on Antonio. But externally, he puts on a mask and he's like, so it's a false laugh. He's pretending to laugh. Okay, guys. So pretend means fingir in Portuguese. Okay. Flash. Flash with the letter E is not flash with the letter A. Flash with the letter A means like light. Yeah, like light, really quick lightning. So flash with E means this thing, you know? So you have bones and you have flesh. There's the skin. The skin is this part that protects your body, protects your flesh, you know? So flesh means a sua carne, all right? And a pound is a unit of measure. Here in Portuguese, in Brazil, we use kilograms, but a pound is roughly 1 point something kilograms. Let me check here. Pound to kilos. Yeah, so it's like how many pounds means 1 kilogram. So 2.2046 pounds is 1 kilogram, you know? So that's it. It's just a unit of measure. Okay? Oh, another good expression. He didn't think, Antonio laughed at two and agreed to this. He didn't think that Shylock really meant what he said. Meant what he said. This is a nice expression, especially for Brazilian speakers. Yeah, it's like this. Ele não acreditava que o Shylock realmente falava sério. So to mean what you say means to talk seriously, to say something seriously, you know? For example, I say, I'm going to travel to Japan. I'm going to travel to Japan next year. You know, if I'm just saying this is one thing, but if I'm really serious and I have a plan and I know I'm going to do this, so I really mean it, I'm serious about that. Okay? And here, let me see, page 3. It's okay, the boxes, yeah. Oh, the box is really good. I have the expression up to. Let me see here. Bassanio. Oh, okay, so the man who chooses me shall get as much as he ought to get. Ought to is a really nice modal verb. Okay, it's there. Ought to is something like should. Ought to, should. All right? You can replace it for should. So he can get as much as he should get. So the same amount as it's owed to him. All right? Was also a piece of paper. Fool. That's a fool in that context is someone who's like idiot, like fool, an idiot. All right? And I think that's it. Yeah, silver box. I thought those things outside are not always beautiful on the east side. And that's it, guys. So, as usual, if you have any questions, today I tried to make only English class, okay, to make you guys practice. Of course, I'm speaking positively, slowly, in order to help you out. But if there was any question, anything that you could not understand, please write down on the comment section. I will be glad to help you. Okay, and remembering, and just to remind you, tomorrow we're going to continue right from page 6. If possible, read it all, yeah, so you get there tomorrow more prepared. All right. So, guys, that's it. If you like the video, please don't forget to hit the like button, share, comment. It will help me. It will help the channel a lot. Not only the channel, but other people, because the more you guys click and share, the more relevant the video gets, and it gets to more people, and more people, you know, will watch it, and maybe that's the content they needed, you know. So yeah, please help your teacher like that. Okay. Hope to see you guys. The link for the book and for the dictionary and for anything else is also here in the video descriptions. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Okay. Bye bye and have a good night. See you later, alligator. Half the crocodile.